Before I read the New Testament lesson, I want to take a moment to thank you for letting me be here today and to wish you happy 100th anniversary. You don't remember this, but I actually preached here on your 75th anniversary. We both made it, 25 more years. 100 years. That's a lot of session meetings. It's a lot of choir practice, a lot of Sunday school curriculum. But that's what it means, of course, to be the church, to put one foot in front of the other in faithful obedience through the years. For the 100-year pathway that lies behind you, thanks be to God. For the pathway ahead that we cannot yet see, but we feel God's hand guiding us, thanks be to God. And thank you for letting me be here on this special occasion. Our gospel lesson today is from the 16th chapter of the Gospel of Luke, and it's one of Jesus' yarns, one of his parables. Now, this is one of Jesus' most provocative parables. Listen. There was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen and who feasted sumptuously every day. At his gate lay a poor man named Lazarus, covered with sores, who longed to satisfy his hunger with what fell from the rich man's table. Even the dogs would come and lick his sores. The poor man died and was carried away by the angels to be with Abraham. The rich man also died and was buried, and in Hades, where he was being tormented, he looked up and saw Abraham far away with Lazarus by his side. He called out, "Father Abraham, have mercy on me. Send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue. I am in agony in these flames." But Abraham said, "Oh, my child, remember that during your lifetime you received good things, and Lazarus in like manner evil things, but now he is comforted here, and you are in agony. Beside all this, between you and us a great chasm has been fixed, so that those who might want to pass from here to you cannot do so, and no one can cross from there to us." He said, "Then, Father, I beg you to send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, that he may warn them that they will not also come into this place of torment." Abraham replied, "They have Moses and the prophets. They should listen to them." He said, "No, Father Abraham, but if someone goes to them from the dead, they will repent." He said to him, "If they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, neither will they be convinced, even if someone rises from the dead." The word of the Lord for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Well, now let me begin by admitting that I do not think it's going to be easy to try to figure out what Jesus wants us to get out of this parable, or any of the parables, really. The word parable is a notoriously difficult word to define. Jewish parable means a lot of things. But one of the best definitions of parable is riddle. A parable is a riddle. There's some enigma to be plumbed, some mystery to be solved. And the thing about Jesus' parables, just when we think we've got it, a trap door opens and we fall down to an even deeper level of meaning. By the way, I think insufficient attention is given to the fact that we serve a Lord whose favorite method of teaching was not law or rule or principle, but riddle. According to the writer of the Gospel of Mark, in only a slight exaggeration, Jesus never said anything except in riddles. I think that bothered his disciples, frankly. We're told that one day Jesus had been preaching and teaching at the Sea of Galilee, one parable after another, one riddle after another. And when it was over, the disciples pulled him aside and said to him, "Why did you do that? Why did you talk to them in riddles?" As if to say, if you've got something to say to them, why don't you just say it directly? But no, he never said anything except in riddles. The humorist Calvin Trillin once said that he failed high school math because his teacher never understood that he meant his answers ironically. Well, so did Jesus, I suppose, because he never said anything except in riddles. The great New Testament scholar C.H. Dodd once came up with a great definition of parable. He said, "A parable is a metaphor or simile drawn from everyday life, the meaning of which is sufficiently in doubt to tease the imagination into faithful thought." Sufficiently in doubt to tease the imagination into faithful thought. Well, even in the strange world of Jesus' parables, this parable that we just read this morning is particularly odd. Most of the parables of Jesus are at least about something that we know about. A farmer sows seed in a field. A woman mixes yeast with flour to make bread. A young man says to his father, "Give me my share of the inheritance. I want to go to the city and make a name for myself." We get that. That's life. That's human life. In fact, one of the most popular definitions of parable is an earthly story, a very earthly story with a heavenly meaning. Well, not this one. Most of the action in this parable takes place not in this world, but the next world. In fact, instead of being an earthly story with a heavenly meaning, you might even say this one's a heavenly story with a hellish story with an earthly meaning. The dialogue takes place out of the bowels of Hades. What happens in this parable is that there is a rich man. We don't know his name, but we know how he lives. He wears designer clothing, and he eats whatever he wants to every day. Right at his door, right at his gate, there is a beggar, a homeless man, a poor man by the name of Lazarus, who is so desperately hungry, he would love to have pawed through the hefty garbage bags that go out the back door of the mansion every day. But no, there is no indication that the rich man ever noticed him, paid him any attention, cared for him in any way. They live only a few feet apart, but they are in different worlds. And then, as is so often the case in parables, there is a sudden reversal of fortune. The poor man dies, and he is taken by the angels to the bosom of Abraham. That's an old Jewish phrase meaning right next to the heart of God. The rich man also dies, but he goes to the old Jewish underworld, to Sheol, to Hades, where he's in agony and torment. And he looks up in his agony, and he sees Lazarus right in the bosom of Abraham, and he calls out, "Father Abraham, please, I'm in agony here. Send Lazarus with some water to cool my tongue." To which Abraham says, "Oh, my child, you've had good things in life. And what's more, there is now a great chasm between us. You can't come to us, and those of us who would love to come to you, we cannot. It's too late. It's too late." What do you think Jesus wants us to get out of that riddle? Well, a lot of New Testament scholars point out that this story fits beautifully into a major theme in the Gospel of Luke. And that theme is that in the struggle between the rich and the poor, between the haves and the have-nots, God is not neutral. God stands on the side of the poor. They have no one else to stand with them, and God stands with them. And it's true. if we read through the Gospel of Luke with an open mind and open eyes, there is more material in Luke on economic justice than almost anywhere else in the Bible. In fact, you almost get the impression that whenever Luke uses the word rich, he snorts. Rich. In fact, right at the beginning of the Gospel of Luke, the angel Gabriel comes to the little peasant girl Mary and tells her, "You're going to be the mother of the Christ child." And she breaks into song. We sing it at Christmas. We call it the Magnificat. But it's not a gentle mother's lullaby. It's a kind of political protest song. What she says is, "My soul magnifies the Lord." Why? Because God has brought the powerful and the mighty down from their thrones and lifted up the weak and the lowly. The hungry God has filled with good things, and the rich God has sent empty away. Right before Jesus tells our story, he has an argument with the local clergy. He says to them, "You want to know what's wrong with you ministers? You think you can serve two gods, God and money, God and prosperity. Well, you can't do it. They are rival gods, and they both want your soul. So which is it going to be, God or money?" Well, maybe our story is the story, a tragic story, of a man who made the wrong decision. And, you know, if that's what Jesus wants us to get, there's something about that interpretation that makes me very happy. You know, when I think about all of my neighbors who have gotten upside down in their mortgages because of the greed of our economic system, it makes my blood boil. And maybe you read the same newspaper story that I did about the professional basketball player from Philadelphia who owes the city of Philadelphia thousands of dollars in unpaid parking fines because he parks his luxury cars wherever he wants to. One of the tickets was for parking his Rolls Royce at Philadelphia Airport for 2 weeks in a handicap slot. And if what this riddle means is that one day greedy and self-centered people like that are going to stand before the bar of God's justice and hear the voice of God saying, "All right, Buster, you've had all the good things in life you're ever going to have," there's something in me that says, yeah. There are only two things that keep me from stopping there. The first is the chill of recognition. Look, I don't think of myself as a rich man. I'm a preacher and a teacher, and believe me, I am paid accordingly. I don't think of myself as a rich man. But if you pull the camera back and look at me in relationship to the peoples of the earth, I'm right near the top of the pyramid. At least in terms of this parable, I wear nice clothes every day, and I eat pretty much whatever I want. Whatever this has to say to the rich, it has to say to me. The other thing that keeps me from stopping there is that Jesus doesn't stop there. Luke doesn't stop there. No sooner has Jesus spoken this parable than he gets on the road to Jerusalem, to the cross. And it soon takes him through the village of Jericho, where he encounters an honest-to-goodness rich man. His name is Zacchaeus, and he's muscle for the Roman IRS. Or as Luke puts it, he was the chief tax collector, and he was rich. And when Jericho is visited by Jesus, Zacchaeus climbs up into a sycamore tree to see Jesus go by. And when Jesus stops under the sycamore tree and looks up at Zacchaeus, he does not say, "All right, Buster, you've had all the good things in life you're ever going to have." What he says is, "Come on down, Zacchaeus, I'm staying at your house today." And before that day is over, Zacchaeus is jumping for joy and justice. And Jesus is saying, today salvation has come even to this man, because this man too is in the bosom of Abraham. The trapdoor opens. There's a deeper meaning here. Is this story about wealth and poverty? Yes. But it's about something else. I think the clue to it comes in what Father Abraham said to the rich man. Do you remember it? Oh, my child. That's not the voice of an angry judge. That's the voice of a heartbroken parent. Oh, my child, I want to come to you, but I can't now. It's too late. I think what this story is about is what might be called the penultimate truth of the gospel, the next to last truth of the gospel. The ultimate truth of the gospel is it's never too late. The banquet of grace is always waiting. The prodigal can always come home. But that would be cheap grace if it were not for the next to last truth of the gospel, which is that every now and then in life, God opens up a window, and there is an opportunity to join in to what God is doing in the world, to be a part of the blessing of God to the world. And either we do or we don't, and then the window closes, and it's too late. That, by the way, is what it means to be a church. We think it's becoming a stable institution, planning for the future. Actually, it's keeping our eyes open to see the windows of God open up and to act with God in the world. The Pulitzer Prize-winning author Tracy Kidder has written an interesting book called Old Friends. It's a book about a nursing home in New England. He spent a year living in that nursing home doing research. And in the book, he says, there are a lot of people in this nursing home who are plagued by the loss of memory. But there is one man here who is tormented by the inability to lose memory. His name is Art, and he has just lost his wife of 65 years. And he is tormented by memories of failure in their marriage. He remembers that when they were newlyweds, she accidentally dropped the frying pan, and he cursed her. If I could have her back, she could drop 100 frying pans. I wouldn't say anything. He remembers an argument that went on all 65 years of their marriage. She wanted him to tell her more often that he loved her. I don't like to talk about it. That ain't my way. I just like to show it. Well, I know, sweetheart, but sometimes I need to hear it. Well, that ain't my way. I just want to show it. The last week of her life, she went into a coma, and he sat beside her bed saying over and over, I love you, I love you, I love you. She never said anything back. She never forgave me. The day she died, he was in the room watching television. The Red Sox are losing again. I would have liked it, he said, if she had died in my arms. Some of us understand this very personally. I cannot believe that when I was a young father, I actually got on that airplane and flew somewhere to give a speech to people who no longer remember me or what I said, instead of going to the father-daughter campfire girl banquet that my little girl Melanie was begging me to go to with her. I can't believe I did that. Now that I'm older and a little wiser, I know I made the wrong decision. I am now ready to go to the father-daughter campfire girl banquet. To which Melanie would say, oh, Daddy, I'm not that little girl anymore who needed her father so desperately that night. You missed it. You missed it. When Jesus was a boy, I think he heard a lot of sermons like this. It was a favorite theme of the old rabbi preachers about how God would send a blessing to earth and there'd be a moment of opportunity to be a part of it, and then it would close. They even had their favorite sermon illustrations. They were called Eliezer of Damascus stories. Who's Eliezer of Damascus? He's an obscure biblical character mentioned one time in the book of Genesis. He's Abraham's cousin and right-hand man. But they made up stories about him. That when God wanted to bless the earth, he would say to Abraham, send a blessing to earth. And Abraham would send Eliezer. And he would come to earth with a blessing. But Eliezer was always incognito. He was disguised as the goat herd or the tailor or the guy next to you on the train. You have to keep your eyes open if you're going to see Eliezer. By the way, if you translate Eliezer into Greek, it's Lazarus. The blessing of God in the form of a beggar at the door. The rich man needed Lazarus a lot more than Lazarus needed the rich man. But he missed it. He missed it. Why did he miss? Same reason we do. He was too rich, too self-sufficient, too numb to the possibility that God was breaking into his life. A friend of mine was watching television the other night with her teenage son. She was folding laundry. They were watching something silly on TV. Her teenage son said something smart, and she didn't like it, so she scolded him. He didn't like being scolded, so he said something even smarter. That really angered his mother, and so she really scolded him, at which point he brought his fist down on the coffee table, jumped up, and ran upstairs to his room and slammed the door. And she said to herself, well, you can just stew in your juices. But then something told her there was nothing in the world more important at that moment than making peace with her son. So she put down her laundry, and she put down her pride, and she went upstairs and made peace. Don't miss it. Don't miss it.